Hey, how's it going? So, someone in one of my videos left a comment asking, how do you take care of Vietnamese Mossy Frog tadpoles? And, well, coincidentally, I just had some tadpoles hatch from eggs. So it's perfect timing. And, I'm a small creator, so I don't have a lot of views. And if people have questions about videos, then why not? I'll make it. I got the time. And like I said, coincidentally, I just got a couple tadpoles and I just set up a new tank for some of them because I'm running out of room. I got a lot of tadpoles. My frogs breed a lot, and it's springtime now. It's a beautiful day, for me at least. No snow, no cold. It's not 40 degrees or whatever. But yeah, so here's a video on Vietnamese Mossy Frog tadpole care. Uh, this is what works for me. I've had zero casualties doing it this way. I'm not saying it's perfect, but for me it's perfect and it works. It works great, and hopefully this helps. And enjoy the video. Unfortunately, this video came out later than I wanted it to because my Fahaka Puffer tank sprung a leak, and I was up till 4 in the morning the other night fixing it, and I did because the Fahaka Puffer is one of my best pets. I've had it for 7 years, and I set up a new tank. Luckily, I had a spare tank I was going to use for something else, and now it's the Fahaka Puffer tank by default. So it's doing good. Like I said, it took me a while to fix things, and a lot of the plants got damaged or ruined, but for the most part I salvaged them, and the tank looks good now. It just needs some time to regrow, and it'll look good as new. I popped in some root tabs, and those plants should start springing off like nothing happened in no time. So, on to the tadpole care guide for mossy frogs. As these eggs are hatching, the parents are already mating again. You can see a great example of what the reddish pink toe pads the males have during mating is right here. It's pretty lucky to catch them in the act like this. Usually when they are mating, they almost always try to stop and hide or swim away. But it looks like love is unstoppable today, so we're in for a treat. Here you can see a tadpole on the right that is about to pop out, and a rotten egg on the left. Usually I remove the rotten eggs, but it looks like there is another egg that has a good tadpole attached to it, so I left it. This is usually what they do right after they hatch. They just float around. So me, personally, I leave them alone for a day or two, then I remove them as soon as I can and transfer them to another tank. I have not lost a tadpole this way yet. The reason I do this might go against some information that is out there on mossy frogs. My first few clutches of eggs hatched, and the tadpoles were getting pretty big fast, and I was super excited, but then all of a sudden they were all gone, and I was pretty sure the other males ate them. Currently, I'm pretty sure in this tank I only have 1 male and 2 females, but I'd rather be safe than sorry. Even if everywhere I've read states that mossy frogs aren't cannibalistic, I know those tadpoles didn't die, and like I said, I'm 99% sure they got eaten. I always have their new tank set up well before the eggs hatch, and then I just scoop them up with a net and I transfer them. When they're only a few days old, they're pretty easy to catch, but sometimes I won't find them for a while, and they can be pretty difficult because they're super fast once they're older. And when they're young, half the time they'll lay on their side and they look like they're dead. When I first started raising them, I was kind of like, oh my god, like, are they dead? But they do that a lot, and it's nothing to be alarmed about. So I'm kind of a hoarder when it comes to tanks and supplies and stuff like that. So I had this old 20-gallon long, and this old filter, and an old pump, old tubing, and an old bench, a little plastic bench, and that's what I use for the setup. I popped in some Java fern and some Java moss, and the tank's not exactly like clean looking, but it does the job. And you can use whatever you want though, but I just use whatever I have laying around, to be honest. So in this case, it's a 20-gallon long with an old fish filter. I primarily use these large pumps for aeration on multiple bins and tanks. They're only like $40 on Amazon. As you can see, I also use pumps. But as far as bins go, those are my go-to. They're the best economically, and they're pretty big, so you don't have to worry really about like running out of room. And I like to use the little sponge filters. I think sponge filters are the best because they pick up all the nutrients and all the like pieces of food, and they can graze on them. There's a lot of ways for filtration, and I just like sponge filters. Again, they're simple, they're easy, and there's not a lot going on, and especially since I have multiple bins, it's just practical. With water changes, I do at least once a week, and since most of my enclosures for the tadpoles are open, there will be a lot of evaporation, so I just dump water in when needed. And here are a couple of tadpoles with their back legs forming, and pretty soon, well, kinda soon, they'll be froglets. Luckily, I have well water that is perfect as far as conditions go, and as a bonus, it tastes great for me as a human. If you are using tap, be sure to treat it with the right type of product, as most products don't really do a lot. Now, I haven't used any in years, so I'm not familiar with the best brands are anymore, but I would never just put tap water in a frog or tadpole enclosure without treating it and testing it. Just make sure your water conditioning product will remove chlorine, ammonia, ammonium, and chloramines from the water, as well as rendering any dissolved metals inert and taking care of that. And if you are going to use spring water, which you can, Deer Park and Poland Springs, from what I hear, have the best choices. And as far as pH goes, 6.5 to 7.5 is usually the best range, and that's kind of where mine's at. So there you go. I always include Java moss in my tanks, and usually Java fern as well. It's a place for them to hide, feel safe, float in, and it helps keep the water clean, and I'm sure they graze on it. I also keep the floor of my enclosures bare. It just makes cleaning a lot easier, and there's a lot of dead plant matter and poop on the floor that builds up, so cleanup is a breeze with a small siphon. Okay, so now it's time for a hot take. People might disagree with this, I might catch some flack, but I've ran it by a few friends in the hobby and they also agree. No extra tannins. I never ever put extra tannins in my water for the tadpoles. I know, that's not what all the guides say, but I've never lost a tadpole this way. I have lost them with tannins and rich leaves and heavy wood in the water. It doesn't work for me. The only wood I use is very small pieces that do not give off much. I know it sounds odd, but it works, and I'm not using them. So for food, I don't usually rely on one source. I rely on a lot of different ones. When the tadpoles are freshly hatched, I throw in a little bit of the adult poop. I'm not sure if this works or if it's true, but I've heard they feed on them when they're young. And you'll also notice I have dead crickets as well. I toss those in, and they seem to feed on those and like them. Now, I do use different kinds of fish food. I vary it up a lot. Lately, I've been using bug bites, so bug bites works pretty well. Also, very important, and I say this in all caps, very important, do not overfeed. They will die in overfed water. I typically feed them every other day in small amounts. So, now that your tadpole is ready to emerge and become a froglet, I put them in a storage bin like this with some monstera clippings. The more the better. I tilt it so they can easily crawl out of the water. I used to have them in covered enclosures with rocks and branches to climb on, but oddly enough, they gave up and they wouldn't go out, so I had to rescue them. So I'll put them in bins like this once they have 4 legs and they look like frogs more than tadpoles with about half their tail gone. I'm currently working on larger enclosures to accommodate more froglets, and I change the water once every day or two for the most part because I don't have a filter in these bins. Lastly, from what I've learned over the years, the frogs develop their sex by the water temperature when emerging as a froglet. That being said, they are kept between 58 and 64 degrees, and if you didn't know, it appears only the cold temperatures will yield females. Well, that about wraps it up. Hope you guys found this video informative and enjoyable, and if you did, please leave a like or comment. I don't really play the system for views or engagement, so every bit helps. I just make videos. I don't get a lot of traffic. Thanks a lot, and I'll see you in the next one.